All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a live stream tonight. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I am Josh, the admin of the Notary Loan Signing Agent Facebook training group, obviously on Facebook. I've been a notary since 2018, and I am an instructor at the Army's Recruiting College currently. I teach interpersonal sales skills, and I mentor new notaries in achieving their marketing goals. So today, I'm pretty excited. FYI, that audio track that you were hearing, that is actually titled "Feeding the Ducks." So the more you know. All right, I have with us a very special guest. I'm excited to talk to her because I have seen her post in the group, and I've binged her blogs and her websites, and I think she has a really interesting story and a really interesting perspective that I want to bring out to everybody. We're going to be talking about title. We're going to be talking about notary industry. We're going to be talking about marketing and a whole lot more. So she has been in the game for a minute, and she has been hustling and bustling, wearing multiple hats since she was in her early 20s. So I'm going to bring her on, Miss Cheryl Evans. Come on board. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So I am winding down with coffee tonight. Okay, I'm always putting in the Army plug. You know that? Yeah, always recruiting. But I'm hoping for a great conversation, and I am hoping to really showcase your knowledge and your perspective on everything that is title, notary, and marketing. So if you can obviously you can probably talk about yourself a lot better than I can. I won't be able to articulate as properly or as accurately. So would you please tell us a little bit about you and about your history and where what got you to where you are today? And FYI, everybody, I apologize I didn't throw out what she currently does. She is a title agent. You are the owner for Zen Abstract Tranquil Title Transfers.
Yes.
I almost stumbled, but I got it. All right, please, yes, share your story with us.
So I started in title insurance back in 1998. I stumbled into it by accident and was being trained by a real estate attorney. So I really got lucky. I got to learn a whole lot really fast and try a whole lot of different things. Um, in 2001, I started Carnanco, which is my business consulting firm. And I was consulting largely within the title and real estate industries and opened my own title company in 2003. Unfortunately, it didn't survive the crash in 2008. I closed in 2011, and I spent about a decade consulting largely in the tech industry, doing software as a service development and project management and software implementations on a global scale. I've gotten to work with people and companies all over the world, which has been really exciting. And I opened Zen Abstract last year, coming back into the title industry. I do still do the consulting as well. And here we are.
Here we are. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. And also, for those viewing, if you are viewing this live, feel free to comment whatever you'd like to comment, questions, etc. Hit us with some likes. That way we know that you are paying attention and like what we're saying. If you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and hit the like anyway. Let us know that you were watching at some point and do a little hashtag replay for us. That way we know that you saw us and we were part of your life at some point. So let's talk about notary and title work. Okay. Um, Title agents. All right. You do virtual title agent work as well, right?
Yes, my title company is a virtual title company. It means that we don't maintain a physical office location. We are capable of doing our work from anywhere. We keep all of our files on the cloud. We're totally paperless, and we make a lot of use of notary closers.
See, and that's what catches my attention a lot because, as we know, the industry is kind of swerving, I guess maybe, or shifting over toward the e-notary, the online notary type stuff. And so I'm really curious. There's always, those individuals who are on the fence with that piece. And for our audience in the group that are newer notaries or that are aspiring notaries, can you explain a little bit about how title works in our realm, right? What part do you play? How do you come into the picture that is, closings?
So the title company gets involved once a property goes under contract. Buyer has found the property they love, sellers accept their offer, they sign a contract, and that's when the order for title insurance is placed. And then, kind of the brief overview of what the title company goes through to get you to closing. They have to do a title search, which searches the public records that are available on both the property and the people involved in the transaction. Um, and they're looking for the history of that property, who has owned it, who owns it now, who might have a right to own it, and what kind of judgments and liens might be against both the property and the people. And when that search comes back, that helps to inform the title company of what other work they need to do to clear any ownership rights as well as any judgments and liens that are due on the property. So we go through that title clearing process. And then there's also a lot of back and forth with the real estate agents and the loan officer, gathering all of the financial aspect of the transaction to fill out the closing disclosure, make sure that we've gotten all of the fees and costs right. And then it's actually the closing itself. And the title company in most states, not all, depends a little bit whether or not we handle the money. So I'm from Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we do handle the money in the transaction as well. Other states have escrow companies that handle that specifically. But either way, all the money for the transaction passes through the escrow or the title company, and then is dispersed out to everybody who has to get paid in the transaction. And all the documents get signed. And that's where the notary comes in, whether they're an in-house notary or outsourced.
Now, that's a lot.
Yeah,
God
it
God
is.
bless. So, did you ever do in-house closings, or have you always outsourced?
No, I do in-house closing some. Over the course of the two title companies that I've owned, it's depended. I have my notary myself. I can certainly go and close things, but I find it difficult to get out of the office for a couple of hours and go do a closing. I'm needed for other things and answering questions all the time. Questions.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, I've had staff that were notaries and could do closings, and sometimes they're dedicated, and that's pretty much all they do is just closings. Depends on the volume. It depends on the title company. It's not uncommon for title companies to have in-house closers. And it's not uncommon for title companies to only close in their office. And that really kind of depends on the title company. But I know there are some that really gain a reputation for the fact that they will travel and close anywhere, because so many of them won't.
Right, right. I've always been fascinated with how that plays out and how everybody's local culture is different when it comes to title companies, when it comes to the notaries, et cetera. So when I was back in Texas and I was a signing agent on that side, I went direct with title about a month and a half into being a notary, right? And yeah, it was scary, but at the same time, I just kind of dove in feet first and did the whole, hey, you can train me, kind of thing, and it worked out really great. And they happened to be a title office that had the notary come to their office. They had a dedicated set of offices there for multiple notaries. They closed about, I think it was about 60 or so a month easy. Um, and so each of us had our own little, I guess, office within the office, and they booked me from the morning until the afternoon, and just kind of, closing after closing after closing after closing. So that was really fun for me. Didn't have to print anything or waste any kind of paper, etc. And then you come out here, and I came out here to Kentucky, and it's a whole different story. So I'm really fascinated with that little piece. So um, on your side, with Pennsylvania, with being virtual, etc. How do you go about finding your closing agent or your notary, I should say?
The majority of the transactions we do tend to be fairly local within a couple of counties area. But we do get the odd closing that's maybe on the other side of the state. I'm in Eastern Pennsylvania. And so for the counties that we do the most business in, I tend to have relationships with individual notary closers that, they're my top go-to when I have a closing. And then, if we have something in an area that we don't do as much business, that's when we might turn to, a signing company or something like that to help us find a notary.
Do
And
you have a go-to signing company? Do you want
I
to share with
don't,
the
not
world?
right now. I don't have
No?
a favorite. But yeah, even picking a signing company, you're looking for things like, how are they vetting the notaries? How do you know that you're getting a good one? And that's really kind of the same process when developing a relationship with a notary directly as well is, how do we know we're getting somebody who knows what they're doing?
Right. Right. Um, and how if I were a newer notary, or if I was trying to solicit your business, right, as a notary, what would you be looking for in me? Does like what plays a factor? Is it experience? Is it how I articulate myself or don't articulate myself? What are the going rates for us?
So experience is probably the number one. And of course, all the new notaries are probably rolling their eyes saying, but how do I get it? And that's definitely a challenge, admittedly, because it's kind of, you can't get the job unless you have the experience. You can't have the experience unless you get the job. I've trained a lot of notaries over the years. And so that's certainly been kind of leaps that barrier to entry for those who I've trained is I know they know what they're doing because I know what I've taught them. And then there's also the ones that I've trained a lot of times have some other background that gives them some knowledge. Like recently I trained an attorney on how to do closings. But she already had all of that legal background, which sort of gives her a leg up in the experience world, that she knows what she's looking at when she's looking for these documents and how to look at documents for details that are important. But beyond the experience, a notary needs to be detail oriented and organized. I hate getting a package back that's got a missing signature or missing stamp, because at the end of the day, that's your main job, is to look at each piece of paper, make sure there's a signature and a stamp. It's not hard. And so I do. Yeah, so I do get really frustrated when I end up with a notary that's sending things back incomplete, because that's the easiest part of the job. And then sending the documents back in order, that one's a big one too. To get a package back from a notary that, a document might have 5 pages and those 5 pages are not together and in order. And I've got to sort through 100 pages trying to find all the pieces of paper that go together for each document. You're not getting another phone call if I've got to do that. If you dropped that package and it's scattered all over the floor, you better figure it out and put it back together, because I shouldn't have to spend an hour doing that. Detail oriented, organized, definitely a win. And knowledge beyond how to notarize. Of course, you've got to know how to notarize properly. And is it, an acknowledgement or an affidavit? And, where do you sign and what do you have to fill out? And those are all really important. But definitely gives you a leg up if you have more knowledge beyond that, the ability to look at the documents and realize, the names on these don't match. The deed doesn't match the mortgage. We've got a problem. We need to fix that. Or the name on the documents doesn't match the ID. To be able to catch a mistake that the title company might have made is a huge value add for a notary. I've definitely worked with ones who either have that legal background or they've just been notarizing for such a long time and doing closings for such a long time that they've learned a few things over the years. That's always a nice one. And then things that are a little bit easier for notaries to kind of tick that box. If you've got the ability to scan documents and send them back to the title company same day, sometimes that's critical. Depends on the lender if they're telling us that they have to have documents back same day. But for a notary that can do that, that can definitely be a good leg up. Being on time, also critical. and having a great personality. When you're going out to close, you need to understand that you have now become the face of that title company that may not have actually talked very much with these borrowers. Sometimes the real estate agents and the loan officers do all the talking, and the title company is told to go through them. So they may not even have talked to this buyer, seller, whoever's in the transaction. But even if they have, you're now the face. It's the only time they're ever going to see you in person or see the title company in person, and they don't know that you're not employed by the title company. You represent the title company. So to go into that, understanding that you are the face of the title company, you are the customer service department, and you are the sales force. What are you going to do to make sure that everybody in that closing, whether it's a refinance and you're just working with borrowers, or a loan officer showed up for a refinance or your purchase and you've got the whole room full of people, that every person that you've interacted with now appreciates your knowledge, your skill, your personality, and they want to do business with that title company. They want to give referrals, they want to give repeat business, they want to be new business. And so a notary who's able to represent for a title company like that and maybe even gain them business, that is like cream of the crop.
There's so much there that is there's such truth. It's amazing, and I want to revert back to a couple things you said. I want to kind of peel back the onion just a little bit further on that. So, um, with a notary knowing extra, right? More than what their notarial certificates are and those kind of pieces, right? That should obviously be the bare minimum, right? There should
Yeah.
be there should be no ifs, ands, or buts. You should know your state laws. You should be able to get presented a package that has, whatever types of notarizations that are needed, and know whether it meets your state's requirements or not, so that you can insert a loose leaf or whatever. So going past that, right, like you said, and knowing, how to spot corrections, or hey, this doesn't match up. Can you give some examples of what that would be? Like what is something that a notary with that extra knowledge would be able to skim through the closing packet and say, oh shoot, I better tell title. What would that look like?
So a little bit more basic is being able to identify if you've got a misspelling. To know to check, compare the ID to the names on the documents. Is everything spelled correctly? Check the property address. Is everything spelled correctly? That one's fairly simple, but really important. If there's a deed, making sure that the names of the buyer on the deed matches the names of the borrower on the mortgage. That's another key one. These are places where it's really easy for a mistake to happen, because the loan documents are coming in from the lender. The title company doesn't always have time to review these documents. They're getting them last minute. They're trying to get them to you as fast as they can, and they're just sending them right back out the door again. And the filling out the deed usually has been done by the title company. And so if they've got a middle initial, but the mortgage doesn't, those things have to match. So those are some of the more basic ones. Now, I've had occasions where notaries have been a bit more in depth, and, they're doing, maybe it's a divorce situation, and they're there with the soon to be ex-husband and wife, and to have an understanding of sort of the types of title documents that need to be signed. There might need to be a property settlement agreement, and to be able to know if a document's missing. That would be common in that kind of a situation. Or maybe you've got an estate that's selling, and to understand what the signature line for an estate should look like, because it shouldn't just be the name of the executor or the executrix or the administrator of the estate. It needs to say the estate of the deceased person by so-and-so, executor, executrix. So to understand some of those more complicated signature lines, or, the fact that if it's an estate or a business that's selling, it should be an estate affidavit for the title company, a business affidavit for the title company. Those would be some things that are kind of going a bit more in depth with that understanding, where maybe you're able to catch a mistake that the title company made. They can save face. You can correct it right at closing potentially, and nobody's got to run around try and get more documents signed the next day in a hurry. And now they're looking bad to the lender, the real estate agents, what have you.
Those are great examples. And for the newer notaries out there, don't let that scare you. Okay, there are the very first part that she mentioned when it comes to making sure names match, etc. Those are some pretty common red flags that even as a notary you should say, hey, you know what, this may be an issue. Let me at least bring it up to somebody, right? And if it's not an issue, it's not an issue, and if it is, then they'll work around that piece. That's good stuff. So then the notary goes out. They are your face, right? They are wearing multiple hats, and how they interact with the signers is going to be a huge impact on the entire deal, right?
Yep.
um Everything is on time. Everything is time sensitive. I did have a few questions when I do my small little 30-minute mentorship questions and whatnot, or phone calls. I do get a lot of questions on, why do they need scanbacks? Like, why is that a thing, right? Can you dive a little bit deeper into why that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really comes down to lender requirements, which is why it's very inconsistent when you need scan backs. And I'll tell you a scenario we actually just had in my office a couple weeks ago. We were working with a lender that we had never worked with before, and every lender has different instructions, 20 pages worth of instructions that we've got to read through and comply with, and no two are identical. It's horrible. There's actually some legislation going through that might fix that, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So in the meantime, we've got to comply with all of this. And, it's not uncommon to get this full set of instructions. I mean, if we're lucky, 24 hours before closing, and sometimes same day. There's a lot to read through, a lot to accommodate. And the one transaction recently, we get we get the full instructions, same day as closing. Closing's supposed to be taking place at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're looking at these documents at, 9 o'clock in the morning. And the documents say that the lender needs not just the closing disclosure and the note faxed back to them same day. They want the entire package back before 5 p.m.
Of course they do.
in order to approve funding. And the title company was, we're not allowed to send the money out until the lender has authorized us to disperse the funds. And in a purchase situation, that same day, you don't get that 3-day right of rescission where the notary can overnight the package back to the title company. They get it the next day. They scan everything in. They send it to the lender. You got a couple days to get through all that. But this is a purchase situation. They want the entire package back same day in order to authorize funding. And, a lot of times everybody's expecting the money to be funded right there at the settlement table. And this was a closing happening. There were no real estate agents. It was happening in the property that was being sold. So a residential location. So no scanner, no fax. She didn't have the full office situation. And we weren't expecting to have to send a whole package back. That was certainly a situation where, it was really important that the notary had the capability to scan an entire package in a timely manner and email it out. But it all comes down to lender requirements and what the lender's telling us that we have to comply with in order to fund.
So two questions on this, okay? First one is now I'm curious on this part. So as notaries, right, we tend to go to direct, right, with title, escrow, et cetera, or we go through signing services, right, or a combination thereof. And so for me at least, when I go through signing services, there are certain I guess signing services or signing companies that, and sometimes even lenders that I'll see come through, right? Like if I'm on SnapDocs and I'll see a certain lender come out and it's their documents and they're the ones who are trying to hire, and I avoid because of one or two negative transactions where it is very last minute or the documents were jumbled up, and as the notary I'm trying to adjust fire and I have things scheduled out as well, right? So everybody's time gets delayed and there's chaos and miscommunication. And one time I even went to a house. I printed all the documents. I head out there. The lender called me directly and said, hey, I'm going to be late printing these documents or sending you these documents. Okay, I've already let title know, but it will be out to you soon. I said, no problem. I'll let the signer know and it'll be fine. We'll adjust to the right. He says, okay. So I call the signer, let him know. He says, okay. I call the lender back. He says, all right, I just sent it to you, etc. I print everything out. I head out there. I get to the door. I knock on the door, and the guy answers the phone or answers the door and says, "Hey, how's it going?" Right? And I was like, "Hey, I'm Josh. I'm the notary who's assigned to your signing package, et cetera, et cetera." And he says, "Yeah, I canceled that like a long time ago." And I was like, "What? I'm sorry. Excuse me. What?" He says, "Yeah, I canceled that maybe about an hour and a half ago. So I appreciate it." I was like, Okay, so and so there, you're saving face, and you're like, okay, no problem, sir, I appreciate it, and you walk away, and I get in the car, and I'm like, oh my god, so I start calling people and letting people know, and it's just nuts. So, as a notary, if we have preferred lenders or preferred signing services, et cetera, that we do and don't want to work for, do you have the same thing as a title agent when it comes to who's trying to hire you for work? Is that like a thing, or do you just kind of adjust and say, hey, you know what, work is work. Everybody's got their thing. I'll go ahead and keep using you, or keep going with you.
Um, Largely, you don't want to turn away work. I mean, I think we all feel that way. You try to
Yeah.
make a buck. Um, you know, uh, Certainly, I have my favorites. There are certainly some lenders, some real estate agents that are easier to work with than others. So, I think everybody's always going to have their favorites. And there have been a few occasions where I have refused to do business with them again. Not often, but there have been a few over the years where it was just so unbelievably awful. It wasn't worth the time, the headache. And then there was one occasion where I refused to do business with a real estate office ever again because, and I didn't even close that transaction. I walked away at the settlement table. Said, no, we're not doing it. It was a scam situation. Wife was not present. Husband was trying to say that he was going to take the documents to her and get them signed at her office at work and bring them back. And no, no, at this point, we need to talk to the wife. We need to see her and her ID, and we walked away. Fortunately, that was the only time that we felt the need to do that, but it does happen, and ethics has to come first.
Excellent, excellent. So if given different situations and whatnot, when notaries get dispatched out, so to speak, and head out, do you ever shy away from, like, do you not like notaries calling you with questions, or are you impartial, or do you prefer it? What's your perspective on that?
Well, I suppose it depends on the questions. If I thought I hired somebody who knew what they were doing and they're calling me with questions that are super basic, and I feel like should have been part of their standard training to know how to do the job, then yeah, I'm probably going to get upset. I'm getting phone calls. I can't say I've ever actually experienced that one myself, but if it happened, I'd be pretty concerned. Like, who did I just send to this closing that doesn't know what they're doing? But if I'm getting questions of oh, we found this discrepancy, how do you want us to handle it, or the borrower had this question and how should we answer it, those questions, absolutely, because we need to make sure that the borrower knows exactly what they're signing, what they're agreeing to. So if they don't understand something, we certainly want to make sure that those questions are addressed, and we want to make sure that everything's done right. So even if the notary has found some discrepancy or something that just seems a little off or odd from what they're used to, I'd certainly rather a question and be able to potentially fix a problem right there at settlement, than to find out the next day that something went wrong, and now you're looking to send somebody back out again to fix something and possibly have to pay for it again. So yeah, I would certainly rather questions than have to fix something after the fact.
So questions encouraged, but the type of questions and the level of, like you said, where the training should be for the notary will dictate whether there's a future phone call in their world, or life, or not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It just kind of
definitely.
Okay.
I think the bar is fairly low on that. I had gone in depth a little bit earlier on some of the more complicated things that notary with experience might catch, and that's fantastic. But I don't think really the expectation is there that they can do that. Ultimately, if the title company's made a mistake, that's on them. But if the bar's not real high for what would be inappropriate questions.
Right. Right. Okay. So I want to shift gears real quick to the Ron side, the e-notary side. So you said that you use those kind of services, and those kind of notaries, and do those kind of closings. What do you see is, I guess, the largest difference when it comes to wet ink, right, traditional style, and then going, completely remote? What are the, I guess, what have you experienced with it? Are there pros and cons? You prefer one or the other, and kind of why?
So I have not actually had the opportunity to do a full Ron closing. I wish I had. I have not yet encountered a lender that is allowing them. But we've certainly done hybrids where the part of the documents have been e-signed and part of them are being wet signed. I look forward to the day that the lenders really embrace the RON closings because it's so much more convenient. Why should anybody have to get in their car and drive somewhere and take time off of work to sign a few documents when all of the technology exists to provide the safeguards that is notarization of making sure that a person is properly identified and that everything is ethical and above board. And we have the technology to do that. So why not use it? It's economical, it's convenient, it works out well for everybody. So I look forward to it, but I think we're probably a few years out before we see it really widespread.
That's what I'm thinking too. It got catapulted a little bit. It's been around, right? But it really got catapulted before it was ready to be kind of mainstreamed with the whole pandemic situation. And in some cases, I feel that it is more more reliable, more authentic. You can really, there's extra steps that you have to take to ensure the authenticity of everything. Right now, you have
Yeah.
dynamic KBA, you have KYC. You can scan the back of an ID, and it brings up all their information from the government database. So there's a lot of extra measures that, as a wet ink traditional notary, you may not be able to try, or
Yeah.
get. So yeah, it's a different little piece. Where do you think the industry will be headed? What do you think will be that little nudge that pushes it toward the complete remote side?
Boy, if there was going to be a nudge, I would have thought it was the pandemic.
Right.
I
So
really thought that would have been the thing that would just tip things over the edge and everybody would really embrace it. So given that that didn't do it, I think it's going to be time. There's a few barriers in place still. Um, the easiest barrier to overcome, but certainly still exists, is on the title side of things, where a lot of title companies are just not as technologically advanced as they could be and probably should be. It's a very, very slow industry to change because it's based in really old traditions and it's just sort of an offshoot of the entire legal industry, which is all based in really old traditions and paperwork. And there's also title's not really well known, and so there's not a whole generation of kids growing up saying, "Oh, I want to be a title insurance agent when I grow up." That's not a thing. And
what
so,
was okay.
people just kind of stumble into the industry, and it takes a really long time to learn title because there is no education for it, and so it's an aging industry. And so that, I think, slows down the adoption of technology too, because you've got people who didn't grow up with it, they aren't as comfortable with it, and so they're slower to adopt, they're slower to change the way they do things. It can be scary, to learn to trust that technology is going to perform the way it needs to, and in a way that protects you from risk and liability. So there's some barriers on the title side, but I think those ones are easier to overcome. The barriers that are harder to overcome and the real slowdown to adopting RON, from at least everything I've been told, is a secondary mortgage market.
Okay.
And that's one that people don't really think about. But from what I've been told by people within the loan industry, the secondary mortgage market does not accept remote online notarizations. And so if the lender can't sell those loans into the secondary mortgage market in order to free up funds to make more loans, then they're not going to do it. And so until that secondary market says, yes, we will accept these in your package of loans as valid, until they accept that, there's not going to be RON.
So yeah, when the big dogs are setting the rules for that, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
then, the patchwork of state laws is always a challenge too, because a lot of the lenders are national. And so if they don't have that consistency across state lines, that may also slow them down as well. If they can't roll it out across the entire industry or the entire organization, uh, they may not be inclined to.
Do you think it'll get there one day?
Yeah, I
Like,
think so. I think it's inevitable, but it's not fast.
and seems very very polarizing. If you So you say that the title industry is kind of, an aging industry, right? And then you have these newer generations who are used to all this technology and they're used to digital everything.
Mhm.
So at some point you have buyers and sellers who would rather prefer doing that, but you have the individuals who are implementing it or controlling the flow of things who are not wanting to do that. So, but yeah, at some point they're going to age out, and the new generation will age in and kind of push the leverage or push the needle a little bit further that way. So
Yeah.
I just hope it's soon.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen over time. But yeah, it's not a fast one, unfortunately.
Now, speaking of going remote and all that, I remember a conversation that we had, and you work a paperless office,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
It still boggles my mind. Like I like part of me says this lady's lying to me because it just sounds so crazy, But the other part's like, it's totally plausible. So can you give me that one more time? Walk me through this paperless, like just just hit us with it. Just hit us with it.
Absolutely. So, I think the piece that's the most mind blowing is I actually went paperless with my first title company in 2005, and that is unheard of.
Yeah.
Nobody went paperless in 2005. But I come from a tech background. And so, it was very comfortable for me. I had cloud-based storage. I had an online transaction portal. Everybody could log in. They could get their documents. I had a scanner. There was no reason to keep a piece of paper when I can keep it on a hard drive. I can keep it on cloud storage. My title company now, absolutely paperless. We do not maintain paper files. The only time we have paper is day of settlement. And even then, maybe not day of settlement because we're emailing it out to the notary. So the notary has paper, but we don't have paper. Um, so we have paper when we get that package back from the notary, and we scan everything back in to our system. We overnight the documents back to the lender, and now we don't have any paper anymore. Anything that was our document that we keep and that was signed, once it's scanned in, we shred it.
Mhm. That's just crazy.
Oh, my
It's
headset just
blowing.
died on me.
Yeah, I can hear my echo a little bit. Not a huge deal. We'll work around it. It'll be just fine. Um, Man, okay. That's I'm gonna have you tell me that story at least three more times throughout our long lasting relationship here. It's because it's so awesome. Like although I can see it in my head, I just can't put it into practice and in my mind and picture me actually doing it. So like in the military, we are trying to go that route, but it seems like the more we try to do that, the more paper that stacks up, because I guess maybe because there's a an inner lack of trust with the technology piece or something, and they think that there's going to be some kind of, you need backups to the backups to the backups and something's going to happen, but this paper, it ain't going nowhere, but I don't know, it's still a fun thing to hear whenever you give it out. Um, but okay. So I would like to hear a story from you. And I'm not sure if you have one on this, but before we move on to the marketing side, I want to hear if you have a story about maybe like a notary nightmare or the opposite, just the perfect closing that happened with a notary. I'd like you to describe one or the other if you have one.
Sure. Sorry. Allergies are kicking in and my eyes are starting
Fine,
to
you're
water
fine.
here. Oh my goodness. Um, Gosh, a perfect notary. Well, that's the one who sends the package back in good order with everything signed and stamped properly. Like I said, I've had a few times where they've caught a mistake, and that's certainly been a lifesaver. Um, the bad notary situations, that's the ones who send things back where it looks like they dropped the package on the floor and just shoved it all back together again. Missing signatures, missing notarization stamps. Or the one that ran into a problem at settlement. Um, there was maybe a mistake in the paperwork that they noticed, but they didn't bother to tell us. Or worse, they had a borrower change their mind at settlement and they didn't call us.
Oh,
Yeah.
they just said
Sort of,
YOLO.
yeah. Never, ever walk away from a settlement without everything signed because something went wrong, without calling the title company and giving them a chance to get on the phone with the buyer, the borrower, and answer some questions and help sort out the problem. There's definitely been times where we've saved a deal by being able to get on the phone and explain something to the borrower so they understood better. But yeah, never walk away from that settlement until you've talked to the title company. And if you can't reach the title company, call the lender. Call somebody. Let it be somebody
Somebody
else's responsibility to determine that, yep, that deal's done, walk away.
makes sense. Have you ever
Yeah.
received scanbacks by people taking pictures with their phone, page by page?
Um, yeah, not a whole lot of pages. A couple is okay. It's better if you have a scanning app on your phone.
I knew a notary once that did she turned the individual pages into PDFs, but she ended up uploading um 150 something pages into SnapDocs, like individually, didn't combine them, didn't just kind of. And I was like,
Wow.
well, that's one way to do it, but you should
Yeah.
probably try it a different way. Let's do something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's an app that I use on my phone called Cam Scanner. Works for
Mhm.
Android. I'm not sure about iPhone.
Right.
It's a free app. My husband's telling me yes, it works for iPhone too. Um, and it's a free app, and it will scan multiple pages so that you can combine them into one document and turn them into a PDF. So if anybody doesn't have something, that's one that I do recommend. I've never had a problem with it. It works really well.
It's usually as long as they get it back in a package and it's legible, right? For scanbacks anyway, that's really what matters, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily okay because they're gonna get the originals at some point. So,
Yeah, if they're gonna
um,
get the originals, PDF is definitely better. You really don't wanna be sending JPEGs. You don't be
right.
using your camera. Your camera is not suitable. If you're taking a picture of just the driver's license and sending that back, that's okay. But, you really want PDFs, even for a driver's license, PDF is better. And definitely, if you've got to scan back a whole bunch of documents, uh, you definitely don't want to send them as JPEG. The files are too big. They're too hard to read. What are you going to open them in? It's just not professional.
So, picture of the driver's license. Do you like it zoomed in, zoomed out? Do you have a preference?
It's got to be legible.
As long as it's legible?
As long as it's legible.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it. So
Yeah.
let's shift gears real quick. Let's start talking about some cool marketing stuff. All right.
But we got a
Um,
question for the name of the app again. That was Cam
oh,
Scanner. CAM Scanner.
oh, there we go. Yeah, there it is. Random Facebook user. We should check on those comments actually. See what else you got. I'm a new signing agent. I'm also commissioned for Ron. I have 19 years of experience in the mortgage industry, processing, underwriting, and closing. What do you suggest I do to market my background and get direct signings as a newbie? Well, I'll let you hit that one.
All right. Yep.
We're
Marketing
on the marketing
stuff.
stuff now. Yeah, there you go. Go for it.
Absolutely. So the fact that you've got all that experience, huge leg up. That's fantastic. That's really going to help you. And then, as far as marketing, you could sign up for all the big signing services. Nothing wrong with that. It might help, get you a handful. But your most consistent work is going to come from developing relationships with your local title agencies. But the problem is finding them. That's the real
Finding.
challenge, finding them. There's far more than anybody would ever realize, because you don't need prime real estate for a title office. So it's not on the main road always, driving down the street. And even if there is one on the main road driving down the street, there's probably 5 more in that town that you don't see. A lot of title companies don't even have websites. So even if you know the name of the title company, trying to Google them, you're not going to find a website. You may not find a Google business listing. You'll find some for some, but not all of them. So you really have to get creative. And I've got a few tips for you on that one.
I'm with it.
Um, so ways to find these hidden title companies. You can go to alta.org. That's the American Land Title Association. Members of the American Land Title Association are in the directory. So you can look up your local area and you can find a listing of title companies there. Again, it's not going to give you all of them, but it'll give you some. You can also look at your state land title associations. They may or may not offer some sort of directory or listing. And then I think probably my best tip, call your local real estate agent's office because they have websites. They're everywhere. And In a lot of states, almost every real estate office has an in-house title company, and all their business is captured. They don't have to advertise. They don't need to spend money on a website. So they're very hidden from view. Um, so call the local real estate agents' offices and ask them if they have an in-house title company and ask to talk to them. So that's my best golden nugget for finding those title companies is to find those in-house ones. But then also think outside the box a little bit. You're a notary. Real estate documents are not the only thing you can notarize. And so, you can network with real estate agents. Occasionally, they're going to have an extra document or two that needs to be notarized. Or maybe they're representing the seller side and seller's not going to come to closing, and they need to get that seller to sign a few documents. So you can get real estate closing document work directly from real estate agents. Also, network with loan officers. You could develop a relationship with a loan officer and get them to go to their preferred title company and be like, hey, this is my closer. This is who I want doing things. I've never had that happen, but it wouldn't surprise me, and I wouldn't necessarily say no. You want to keep that loan officer happy, and if that's what they want, that's what you're going to give them.
Yeah.
So go network with some loan officers, and even if they aren't willing to kind of stick their neck out and say, well, I want you doing my closings, they could at least connect you with the title companies that they know, and maybe put in a good word for you. And the other thing you can do is join local business networking groups. You are a notary. There's lots of documents that you can notarize. So network with other businesses and gain those referrals for them for those one-off documents that need to be done. And then also locate any kind of place where people can't leave. So hospitals, rehab centers, assisted living facilities, and prisons. They all have need for mobile notaries because people there can't go and find a notary themselves. And so you can also get business by traveling to places like that.
That's all. And that wraps up the show. No, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. That is excellent, excellent information. And I love that. So we didn't rehearse this. All right. That we're eye to eye right here. I like that. That's good. I dig it. So going into organizations. Now every market is different, right? Every little local culture is kind of its own little thing. Sometimes in different places there are some commonalities, but say in your local area, right? Do you attend any of those organizations or clubs or et cetera in your area? And if you do, which ones? And if you don't, why not?
Well, I am a member of BNI, which is a business networking group. They are broken into chapters and restricted seat kind of business networking. So, I'm the only title company in my chapter. No other title company can join. But a mobile notary could certainly join a group like that. There are others that aren't restrictive, and I've certainly gone to visit quite a few of them. Definitely a good way to meet other business owners and get referral business for any type of business.
Excellent. Let me get to the comments real quick. All right, I'm a realtor too. Love that. Excellent. Let's see here. Will this be saved? It sure will. It should be hanging within the group when it's done, and definitely on the YouTube channel if you're on that piece. Let me get to an earlier comment before it gets out of my feed. Let's see. Miss Becky says, if you can't reach either the title company or the bank when a client changes their mind halfway through the signing, what should the notary do in that case? Ooh, good question.
That is a really good question. So the first thing I'm going to say is double check all your contact information. You know, the title, especially if you're signing after hours, because the title company's main office number may ring straight to voicemail after hours. Same thing with the lender. But somewhere within your documents, there might be a cell phone number that you can call. So double check all the instructions you got, both from the title company and from the loan officer or the lender, and just make sure that you've exhausted all your options. Make sure you have called them, text them, and email them. And wait a little bit, see if you can get a response. If you've exhausted all of that and there's just nobody available, then at that point you'll have to leave. You've tried everything you can, and that's all you can do. You'll have to leave if you can't answer their questions. One other thing that you can do in a refinance situation is you can reassure them that they actually have 3 business days to change their mind. And so, key agent will be able to convince them to finish signing all of the documents, because they can call the title company the very next day and cancel the whole thing, and they haven't lost anything. And also explain to them that, if they don't, if they leave, they haven't signed anything, and then they get their questions answered the next day and they change their mind, then you're going to have to come back out and they're going to have to pay another fee for it. And so
Right.
that could entice somebody to sign and then get the rest of their questions answered the next day.
And to keep in mind, those that are watching. So in my opinion, the sales hat version of the notary in this situation is kind of a very gray line, right? So what Michelle said is absolutely accurate, but I want to kind of clarify one thing, and that is, so it's not your job to sell anybody, but you can present factual avenues that are going to happen, right? For just like Cheryl said, you do have this 3-day right to rescission. The opposite, if I leave and you don't complete this, then X, Y, Z. So don't think that you have to sell on behalf of anybody, but you do want to present the options to those signers, and that in itself, I think, will naturally kind of sway them the correct way, shall we say,
Yeah,
or the way that we want
absolutely.
them to go. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
And
it.
that's a good clarification. Another thing aside from the extra fee for having to come back out the next day to sign is also, tell them to contemplate their interest rate. If they cancel and then restart the whole process, they may have a different interest rate. And so, again, it might be in their best interest to sign everything that day, get all their questions answered the next day, and then make a final decision.
Right. Right. And then throw in there, but if you want me to come back out, I'll get paid twice. That's fine with me. No.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a hard sell, but it should be informational. You're educating them on what their choices are and what the consequences are for making that choice.
Call. All right, that was a good question. All right, so Facebook user says great tips on how to find work and love the tips on mobile notary as well. Well, you're very welcome. Now, if you guys are wondering why you guys are popping up as Facebook user, it's because we're using StreamYard and you have to give it permissions to access your Facebook profile and all that kind of good stuff. So if you scroll to the very top of the comment section, you'll see some instructions with facebook.com/StreamYard, I believe it is, and that'll walk you through that little process just in case you want to have your name and face on there instead of being a random user. Scary. All right. Let's see. I went to an assisted living facility today. They were ecstatic. There you go. Excellent
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
All right.
awesome. I had one recently where one of the borrowers was in a rehab facility. They were recovering from brain surgery, and they were really concerned about how they were going to finalize this transaction. And I had to reassure them, no problem. We will help you find a mobile notary who will come out, and you'll be able to sign your documents and take care of everything. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge for people sometimes.
1,000%. 1,000%. So, um, you presented a lot of good information with the marketing side, right? You gave us some great tips, etc. I want to talk about your marketing philosophy, right? So I'm gonna throw this out now because I feel like we vibed a little bit already. All right.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna go ahead and say that I would technically be the yin to the yang on something, right? So when I first saw your website and it was all tranquil and it was very zenny, and I thought to myself, I am not zenny, right? I thrive in chaos. I just need my life to be complete chaos for a little bit. So I was like, oh, I don't know. But then, I started reading your blogs, and I started watching your small little videos they have, and the informational pieces. And I said, shoot, you just God, you just always surprise me. It's awesome. So can you please enlighten us with your marketing philosophy and how that kind of works into how you run your title agency and your consulting business?
Sure, absolutely. So, I've long been a fan of Eastern philosophy. I've actually been studying philosophy since I was 13 years old, Eastern and Western. And, the thing that I love most about Eastern philosophy, it is not a religion. Zen, Taoism, even Buddhism, they are not religions. They are not teaching you to worship some supernatural being. They are philosophies, life philosophies. They are trying to teach you how you can move within our world and interact with other human beings in a way that is beneficial to you and to others. And there's just so much to be learned from that, about how you can change your life just on your perspective on things and the choices you make and how to react to situations. And it really is, it's on the surface, very simple, very subtle. And underneath, it's absolutely groundbreaking, shattering information, to really transform every experience that you have. So that's where the Zen comes from, and to bring that philosophy both into my consulting and to my title company, of this idea of, how do we make what we're doing better, easier, less stressful for everybody involved? It's why my business consulting focuses on operations, not sales. Most business consultants come into a company to advise them on sales. That's not what I do. I actually partner with consultants who are sales focused, because if you can improve your sales all you want, but if you can't service that customer and keep them happy and keep them coming back for more, then what good is a fantastic sales force? And so that's my focus, is the how do you do the things you do, and how do you do it in a way that is, better, simpler, more efficient, and produces better results. And I love this fact that you say that you thrive in that chaos, and you're not very Zen. I'm not very Zen. It is a goal. It is what I strive for. It's what I aspire to. I'm actually diagnosed ADHD. And so, the inside of my brain is pure chaos. Nothing is ever in order. And I've turned that into my superpower, because I've had to learn how to be incredibly organized and how to put things in a logical order, because they don't come out of my brain that way. Anybody who's ever actually had the horrible experience of having to watch me type an email or instructions for something, maybe we were screen sharing and I started typing something up, I feel so bad for them. Because it's not something you can follow. I'm all over the place and end up rearranging things. And, by the time it's done, it's very neat and organized, but it's a process to get there. And so, that's where it comes from, is my search for answers on how do I function in a world that's not built for me.
Have the answer. Just go paperless. That's the answer to everything. That's awesome. I would argue, now that you mentioned that, I would argue that that is probably a decent issue with the average notary. You know, if they let's say that their sales and marketing was on point and they were just, getting work. Are they organized and efficient enough and systematic enough to be able to handle, X amount of closings a day, a week, a month, etc.,
Yeah,
accurately and efficiently? I think
absolutely.
that's something to look at. That's something
Yeah,
to
and
look at
that's a good point. And I'll expand on that just a little bit, to kind of give some more pros and cons of good notaries and not so good notaries that I've worked with. While I say it's great that you're the face of the title company and provide some good customer service, but you have to thread that needle with efficiency. I have gotten more compliments for the notaries who have gotten people in and out of closing in record speed than I have for the really, really personable ones who talk too much and take forever to close. And I'll even give you guys some concrete numbers for that. You should be striving to average 30 to 45 minutes for a refinance and an hour for a purchase. If you can get in and out of there in that kind of time frame, everybody's going to be your fan, and
Right.
you're going to
You want to hear
maximize your income.
you want to hear something scary? My first refinance took me about 2 hours and 40 something minutes. Oh, it was rough. And that was at the title agency. So the first one that I went to, and they gave me a shot, right? And they knew I was new, so it wasn't like a surprise to them. But I had already talked with two of the officers. And so when I got into the closing, nervous as heck, right? My palms are sweaty, all that kind of good, rap song stuff. And so I go into the closing and into the signing, and I get through the whole thing. Obviously, 2 hours, 14 minutes. I'm in and out of the office constantly, going to the back, making copies, slash, reading on some of my notes, trying to figure stuff out. And I finally close everything out. It's all done. Escrow officer comes in, QC's my stuff, right? Checks it all out. It's all good. Signers leave. I'm on the fly when I'm with people. It's easy to still prolong it and tap dance and make it still somewhat entertaining. So they weren't mad or anything, and they left and all that. So the administrative assistant that was at the front office at that point, I had not met her yet. Right, that was the first time I had met her, but the other officers already knew me at that point because I'd been there before. And so when I came out, she I came out and I was like, whew, when they left. And she says, that was definitely your first time, wasn't it? And I was like, it was. Was I that obvious? And she starts cracking up and she says, oh my God, that is 2 hours too long. And I was like, next time I'll be better. But yeah, just
Yeah.
figured I'd throw that out there to give you a little anxiety. But yeah, those are some great time hacks that you recommend for everybody, because that is a common question, especially within the group and other Facebook forums. How long
Yeah.
should this take? So that was a good nugget. Thank you so much for that. All right, and
Absolutely.
Miss Becky asks, do you ever find your notaries directly from the NNA website? And is the amount of insurance I have for both my bond and E&O important to you when deciding who to contact?
Great questions. I personally don't use the NNA website. I really, really prefer to have a personal relationship with my notary closers, and I use them repeatedly. And I generally um, only use a handful of them. But I keep a list too. So anytime I'm contacted by a notary closer, and they're looking for my business, I do literally maintain a list and keep their contact information. So that way, if I do have a closing, maybe they're in an area that I don't do a lot of business in, I then have a source to pull from, and I'll go to that list first, of all these random notaries who have contacted me, and I'll go there first and see if I have somebody in that area that I can contact for closing. That's my second go-to. I only search directories or even Google search for a notary in a particular area, if I have to. But I would sooner Google search for a notary and find their listing, mobile notary near blah, blah, blah city, and probably find somebody that way before I'd necessarily go to one of these big website listing locations. But that is me, and I won't say that they are worthless. I'm sure there are plenty of title companies that would and do use them. So I may be unique in that. I find I'm unique in a lot of things. um, and then the other question was the bond and the E&O. Absolutely, those are absolutely important because they're important to my E&O insurance company. And when I purchase my title E&O and renew each year, I have to fill out a form. And one of them is, do you use contractors? And if you do you require that they have E&O insurance? And that answer, it better be yes, because otherwise I'm not getting the insurance. And so anytime I do work with a new notary, I need to get a copy of their E&O, or, when it comes time for a yearly renewal, I have to get the fresh copy. So definitely it is something that you need. It's something you need to keep handy so that it's easy to send. And I would even argue, if you're sending out emails, trying to just contact title companies and get on that list that hopefully they're maintaining, two things that you definitely want to send to them is your service area. What counties do you cover? And send them that E&O so they already have it on file. Might
How
make them more
much?
inclined to use you.
How much for E&O insurance would you recommend, or how much what do you look for? 25,000, 100K?
Um, Probably 100 is probably better. And it maybe depends on the state as well. There might be some varying requirements. I know even for my notary, I go through the Pennsylvania Association of Notaries to get my notary, to renew my notary for my classes. And I go with their standard issue because they're the experts and they know what everybody needs in my state. So if you've got a state notary association, that's probably an organization worth being affiliated with.
And so if a notary wanted to market to you, right? Uh, Being virtual, being not having a brick and mortar, right? Like you said, there's plenty of them out there. What would be what would be a tip from you when it comes to what would be the angle that you would play if you were a notary trying to get work from the invisible or unseen brick and mortar type title company?
So it's probably that list of things that I rattled off earlier of what I look for in a notary. To send an email that introduces yourself and tells me, what kind of experience you have, what kind of closings you're capable and willing to do, what your service area is, the fact that you have E&O insurance, what your availability is too. Some notaries are only available in evenings. Some notaries are only available on the weekends. Some are not available evening and weekends. They only close during the day. So your availability would really be important too. Kind of just tick all those boxes of, well, if they're going to place an order, what do they need to know that you're the right person to place that order with? And of course, contact information. Make it easy for them to reach you. Make sure they've got a cell phone, they can call, they can text, they can leave a message, and they can email.
That better be an important part of it, right? It's all
Yeah.
fun and games until they can't reach you. All
Yep.
right, love that
Absolutely.
idea, Star Mosley. Appreciate that. Um, and we have another question here. How can we get on your list? Ooh, there's a go-getter right there. Good
Yes,
call there,
yes,
buddy.
definitely. So I think my contact information has scrolled by during this call, and
Want me to
if
put
not, gosh,
the Zen abstract one? There you go.
yeah.
Boom.
So there you go. That is my title company. I'm probably going to get inundated. I only do Pennsylvania. So if you are not a Pennsylvania notary, don't waste your time. Um, it's not going to do any of us any good. But if you're a Pennsylvania notary, feel free, send me your information. I will add you to my list.
And this is her website right here, in case anybody was interested in seeing that. All right. And since we are coming up on the hour, actually we just passed the hour, I do want to hit one area because I am I liked it. It was a good blog. It was so you have a blog titled I Love the Way You Lie. And when I read it, it was great because I don't remember if I had just posted something to that effect in the group or if I just had a phone call with somebody about that topic. But I talk about that same kind of scenario a lot. You just took it from the Zen side, or from the that little angle. And then after I read it, I chuckled and said, "We're saying the same thing, but we have two different approaches." It was great. So you talk about people lying to themselves, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring that
Yep.
up on the screen. And can you walk us through those three steps that you kind of summarize your little blog piece for us? And let me take off that little
Absolutely.
banner. Go for it.
So the blog piece was about how we lie to ourselves. This year I'm going to start a business. This year I'm going to grow the business. This year I'm going to lose 20 pounds. This year I'm going to go to the gym all the time. I'm going to eat better. We all lie to ourselves all the time. New Year's resolutions, the whole 9 yards. And the problem comes in that we don't follow through. Um, you know, Everything starts with a thought and then you turn it into words, and that's a step in the right direction. You're thinking it to yourself, but now if you start telling people, and maybe they'll help hold you accountable, or you feel that own internal guilt even that you've said that you're going to do this thing, so maybe now you need to follow through. But without that follow through, nothing happens. Words don't magically materialize into things. The whole idea of thoughts and prayers. Well, thoughts and prayers are great, but you need some action to go with it. And that's that step that transforms your life. Think of that great idea, put it into words, write it out, hash out that idea, work through the good and the bad, talk it through with some friends, get some feedback on it, and then create an action plan. And I've got a lot of experience in project management, and that really translates into this concept of it needs to be small goals that are achievable in order to reach the big goal. So, if the big goal is to quit your day job and do notary closings full time, and run your own business, well, that's great. But if all you ever talk about is quitting your day job and running your full time business, it's not going to happen. You've got to break it down into small, achievable goals and action planned. And so, set yourself smaller goals. Great. You've got to be able to do 10 closings a month. And how are you going to do that? break it out. Well, this week I'm going to call 5 real estate offices and ask to talk to their in-house company. And next week I'm going to go to the Alta website and I'm going to look up all the title companies in my area and create a mailing list and send out an email blast. And the next week I'm going to call every hospital in the area and ask if I can, offer mobile notary services there. So create that action plan in small steps that are achievable every week until you can reach that big goal.
That was awesome. That was perfect. If you guys are digging that, please hit the like button or the heart or some of those little reaction things. I think that was excellent. That's awesome. And like I said, when I read that, I was like, man, we're coming from the same spot, just different takes on it. That's great. So since we are going past the hour at an hour and 10 minutes, there was man, we could talk. I could talk with you forever and get a whole bunch of gems. I'm pretty sure. But I do want to also give you some props and some kudos on some things. So I would like you to kind of give a little insight to people about the you behind this piece, right? I know that you do the consulting, you have some promo stuff, all that kind of good stuff. Just hit us with all the hats that you're wearing. Let us know.
I do wear a lot of hats. That ADHD, it comes through. I love to stay busy and I love to get involved in a lot of things. So I have the title company, which is the zenabstract.com. And in there is a blog. I also have social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, both for Zen Abstract, my title company, and my business consulting firm, which is carnanco.info. And those different social media feeds all vary a little bit. So it's worth following me in a few different places if you like some of the information I've been putting out. I write posts about philosophy, like we were just talking about with the I Love the Way You Lie. And then also marketing tips and business operation tips and technology tips. So it really runs the gamut. And then, behind the scenes, my absolute passion is drawing and graphic design. That's what I love to do. You can certainly see that come through in some of the website and marketing material that's on both those companies and social media feeds. And then I have a clothing line that I design and sell online. And swaggle.promo is one of my newest services, and I'm actually creating swag stores for small businesses. So it's your own online store with all of your branded products, and there's no minimum order quantities, which is one of the biggest hurdles for small businesses to be able to take advantage of the power of marketing material with branded products. Is those high order quantities where what are you going to do with 250 of something when you only know 5 people, and paying $500 to get it. Instead, you can order one of something really high quality and give a really nice gift to somebody that they're actually going to want, and market your business that way. So yeah, lots of hats. So certainly, if anybody liked any of the information that I was giving today, please give me some follows, give me some likes. I'd love to hear from you. And Josh, this was so much fun, and I would love to do it again. So if anybody out there listening to this enjoyed it, please comment. Let Josh know if you'd like to hear from me again, and maybe we can make something happen.
Most definitely, most definitely. Thank you so much for giving us your time and dropping all sorts of cool little gems and great information, just solid information. It's always great when it comes from somebody experienced. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time. For those of you who are watching, if you're watching on the replay at some point during this whole piece, this is all derived from the Notary Loan Signing Agent training group in Facebook. It's a group that is dedicated towards new notaries and notaries in general, but more importantly, new notaries, and it's free information. I do also offer free 30-minute mentorship calls. There's no strings, no sales pitch. It's literally just, hey, let's get some answers together. That way you can talk with somebody one-on-one without having to pay anything for it. Okay. But you can get on my calendar. It's strolling right there on the ticker line. It is calendly.com/Joshua J Online. So feel free to do that. I do have some paid versions of it, but there's no need for that. You can definitely get a lot of information in the 30-minute session that we have for free. Okay, if you want to go further, we'll go further. But at the end of the day, it doesn't come with a sales pitch, guys. All right, just some information. And if you are not already and you want to see more of these videos as they start getting logged for the streams, please visit and subscribe to my YouTube channel on youtube.com/Joshua J Online. I am not a YouTuber. You're not going to see a whole bunch of fancy stuff from me, maybe eventually, right? But not at the moment. Right now, my main focus and the individuals that I bring on board, just such as Miss Cheryl, our main focus is to give out valuable information and give you something that you can work with and help hopefully stir the pot in your head and get some value add in your life. Okay, that's our main goal. And so when I bring anybody on board or I talk to them and have conversations with them, I usually have a conversation with them off camera and talk to them first to find out where they're coming from, do they have good intent, all that kind of good stuff. And once they pass all those checks, I bring them on board because I believe in their heart and soul and in their purpose for giving the information out. So once again, I appreciate everybody for being here. Miss Cheryl Evans, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and to give all those that valuable information. One last pitch. What email do you prefer that they reach out to you on?
If you're reaching out to me to be on that mobile notary list, then you want to use cheryl.evans@zenabstract.com. And I have been in Josh's notary group. I do answer questions in there, and I have seen some raving reviews for his 30 minutes. So definitely take him up on that offer because everybody seems to be super impressed. And I've been super impressed with my conversations with Josh.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. You guys have a great night. Have a great weekend if we don't talk past that. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.